2025 to work fees. There is no public hearings tonight, no old business, so we will move right into new business. Ms. Woodmaster, presentation of our FY 2026 budget.
Good evening. All right, so the first 15, 17 pages of your packet are the proposed budget for this coming fiscal year, FY 26. We'll just go through each section and I'll explain what changes or modifications have happened since the last time we have all spoken in a public setting, which would have been our town hall. So for the revenue, if you flip over to page 2, you'll see that there is, before any operating transfers in, there is an increased revenue of $109,268,000 before that transfer in on the budget from last year to this year. What is not being contemplated in that number is the fund balancing mechanism used to balance last year's budget or that balancing transfer in. Excuse me, direct transfer in. So our regular operating revenue from last year to this year is increased by $109,268. And then on page 3, for the mayor and council departments, there is a reduction of $10,983. This reduction is what we're discussing tonight, the proposal of reducing the number of council meetings we have from 3 to 2 of those being on the same meeting day, which we will discuss later on in today's meeting. There is no change to the election budget. The elections are what they are. And then moving down to 1,500 or 100-1,500, which is our general fund, there is a reduction of $196,605. This is due to the restructuring of City Hall. Our proposal is to move utility billing entirely to the Public Works Department, which eliminates them from City Hall and their budget. We are also reducing the position of the administrative assistant and social media coordinator. We have on the there's a new finance line, 1510. After the meeting, one of the things that we've all talked about is having an accounting firm because we do not have a finance director. So that's being added to this year's budget for $45,000. And then the auditing, this is our financial audit fee. That is $42,000. There's no change to that that agreement with Morrison Waters. And then moving over to page 5, you have our legal department, which is seeing a $35,000 increase. This is our legal firm, and the anticipated increase for fiscal year 2026. And then the IT budget has seen an increase of $42,170. I know that sounds drastic. I promise it is not. There was a consolidation of some of the services that we provide across the board. For example, our wireless internet or fiber that we have, our telephones and cell phones that we have within the system or within the entire city, our website, managed IT, that service for ACNS to manage our IT services is only $34,000. The rest of it is all infrastructure like servers, backups, cybersecurity, and all of that is combined into this budget. It also includes our emailing system, our Adobe software, as well as our Microsoft 365. So Word, Excel, all of those programs are all funded through this IT budget. Okay, and then moving on to page 6, we have removed animal control from the budget for this year. And then our courts has seen an increase or a reduction in costs of $5,195. That is really only due to the utilities being reallocated to the police department. So we used to pay, like the electric bill for the police department was split 3 ways. It was court, PD, and GCIC, and we're just combining it into one payment for the police department. So that is the only reason that there's that reduction on their side. All right, and then the police department is on page 7. There is an increase of $116,115.94. The majority of that is because of the $36,000 in additional police vehicles that are being added to the annual contract from this year. That's now included in this year's budget. The $24,000 for the E911 radios that are supposed to take effect the end of summer, beginning of fall. So we will be having to purchase those this year. There is an increase for the K9 supplement. For the K9 officers that we have, there's a mandated 4-hour requirements per week that we're supposed to give to the officers that are handling a K9. So that is $11,942.58. And then there was a $12,000 increase to liability and casualty insurance. We talked about this at retreat and a couple of other times. This is due to an increase and a reallocation across the board. So there was a slight increase to our annual fees for casualty and liability insurance, but we've reallocated them to the departments that carry the most liability. That's who's paying for that service, or that portion of the insurance. And then $33,000 of that is an increase to employee insurance, the health benefits that we have. So that's the increase on the police department. Yes. And then for GCIC, there is a $6,944 increase. That's due to the employee insurance costs going up, and as well as the reallocation of the workers' comp. Has seen a slight increase of about $800. So that's where their increases come from. For the fire department, on page 9, there was a $4,501 decrease in that budget. There was more reductions in that department. For example, we've reorganized the department. We no longer have the position of assistant fire chief. We have a fire chief, a captain, and then 3 lieutenants. We used to have 2 lieutenants. So that reallocation or reorganization saw a reduction. We also saw a few other line items. If you go through, you'll see some reductions there. But the increase that netted out to that $4,000 reduction is the $23,000 for the E911 radios, and then the $10,000 increase to liability and casualty insurance. Our street department is on page 10. This department saw a $128,000 decrease. The majority of that is due to the reduction in 1 position for the street department. And because we've reduced that position, we no longer need to buy or replace one of the vehicles that was proposed in the budget originally. We have a 10-year replacement program for all public works vehicles, including streets. So that has been removed from this budget due to the reduction in that position. And then also the employee insurance went up by $14,000, so that is in there as well. Or, I'm sorry, because of that increase, that being removed from it for that 1 person has allowed that to reduce as well. Moving on to page 11, the garbage. This is a pass-through cost from the contractor to us. It's a 3% increase. There's no other changes in that one. So that's a $6,450 increase. The cemetery and the park budgets saw no increase. Everything was removed. I think there was a railroad watching pavilion, the Christmas tree, and 2 or 3 other items. All of that was removed. And then code compliance saw a $4,910 increase. Part of that is employee insurance. And then we added, the vehicle maintenance and the gas for the vehicle is now in this budget and not in general admin. So there was an increase there. And then the Axon program for the taser body cam and all of that is now included in that budget as well. With all of those changes or modifications, the operational deficit at this point is $434,582.74. That is our general fund. Any questions?
Mayor, do you mind if there's a comment from the audience?
I'd like her to get the presentation first.
Okay, so on page 12, you have the revenue for the enterprise. This one will go just slightly bit quicker, fewer departments. So the proposed revenue after the restricted revenue is $5,130,446.54. You'll see on page 13 and 14, that is all of the general administration expenses that are directly allocated to the water fund. So if you go back all the way to that first page, there's those 3 columns. This represents that the 35% column. There was a reduction from last year to this year due to the reduction in staff as well as the reallocation or restructuring of the utility billing department. On page 15, you have the wastewater treatment plant. There's an increase of about $14,543. $6,600 of that is employee insurance, the health benefits that we have, and then $7,500 of that is lab testing. There was an increase in that one. On page 16 and 17 is the public works budget. This is water distribution and wastewater collection is combined into one. That is what we affectionately refer to as the public works department. This budget saw a $56,541 increase. That is because we reallocated those 2 positions. So the 2 utility billing clerks that we have at City Hall, 80% of their salary has already been allocated to the water fund. 20% of that was the general fund. This is proposing that 20% be reallocated to the water fund entirely. So their salaries are 100% in here. And then we've also frozen one of the positions that he had in his budget for this year. On page 18 and 19, again, this is the general fund allocations that are directly allocated from that first page. This would represent the 10% column. There was a slight increase in this one, and again, that's just due to the regular pay of those utility billing clerks coming over to this side. On page 20 is the water treatment plant. This department saw a $76,199 increase from the last year. There are a few of our workers that are being cross-certified, so they're either increasing their level of certification for the water plant or they're being dual certified so they can also work in the wastewater plants when they need assistance. So that's taking place this year, but also the same thing that has impacted every department. Employee insurance has gone up, so there's an impact there. There was also a pretty significant increase in our chemical budget, cost to treat water, and then water purchases, which we make from the city of Demorest because of where our plant or the raw water intake is located. And then on the last page, on page 22, you'll see the debt coverage ratio. This is the breakdown that we've used the last couple of years to explain where we are. In reference to the debt coverage ratio we're required to maintain for our bond. We are required to maintain a 1.1, and the budget that is being presented tonight puts the debt coverage ratio at 1.18. Any questions about the enterprise?
First, I'd like to thank the staff for taking the citizens' comments seriously. After the town hall, I know that Ms. Woodmaster met with all of the department heads again, met with mayor and council, took another look at the budget, took your recommendations seriously. And we went from, what was it?
891,000.
891.
To 434.
To 434. So continued to make cuts. There was an elimination of positions. There was an elimination of the COLA. There's the animal control. So the things that the citizens mentioned at the town hall were taken into account as we worked through this budget. This was an ordeal for all of us to get to this point tonight in the presentation. So I thank you for your hard work getting us to this point. Council?
I'm very interested in comments from our people.
Okay, are there any questions here first? I mean, we've been meeting and talking about it for 2 weeks.
questions, I've got comments, but I'd rather you go first.
Okay, well, and our, our public hearing is next week, but if you've got some quick comments, happy to entertain them.
Well, I appreciate you being willing to listen to us, because I understand it's not required, so that speaks honorably of your interest. Appreciate the effort y'all have done to slice this by roughly half. I got a couple of technical questions I'll ask you tonight.
Do you want to come up here to the podium so we can all hear and see?
Sure. So, the technical question related to the presentation she just presented. There's a new line item under personnel in many of the departments.
Okay.
It's a personal leave expense.
Yeah.
Was that a reallocation, or is that a new benefit that y'all are
No,
including?
it's not a new benefit. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's actually taking into account, the liability that is earned by all of the staff for that current fiscal year. So, for example, somebody who's worked for the city of Baldwin gets, they've been here for a year, they get 2 weeks of vacation. So that is contemplated in that line item, and it's reduced, it's anticipated that they are going to use at least some portion of that in the annual salary line item. So the
Right.
regular pay line saw a change because it was added to the personal leave,
So-
as well as, holiday pay,
Yeah.
that was also broken out as well.
Right, because in the past, we had accommodated that as portion of in another line.
Right, or
So-
it was not contemplated at all, and that's the concern, if our staff were to quit, then the budget, there would be no money in the budget to handle the PTO buyout, for example. So having that in there is important.
And it was in there last year, it just wasn't separated. So it was all in regular pay, but now it's in regular pay personally.
Right, so it changes the regular pay number to a little bit lower in order to make that pay back up. You've added this new number. Thank you, that clarifies that. And so it's important that the public understands it.
Right,
That
and that's why
that's
they're
the case.
separated out, so we can talk about those things.
Right, so it doesn't actually change their pay any, but
No.
it does help clarify that. Okay, that's the technical questions I had about that. I have more in-depth questions as far as the budget goes. And I know we had the hearing, which will give me an opportunity to completely speak my mind. But as each of y'all know, I asked about fund balance. And the city's response is y'all have no fund balance statements. Well, in the audited January 30, 23, it was $2,649,587 worth of fund balance. And today you have no fund balance statement, and that's the official ORR received from the city. I got some responses from some of you council members. Thank you for that. It speaks volumes that you have the respect to respond on that. But I think the citizens would like to know where that $2 million is if there's no fund balance statement as of now.
Okay, Ms. Woodmaster?
I mean, I'm
We'll
happy to
explain
look
it,
at that
we'll explain
number.
it again.
I mean, I'm happy to look, I don't know what that number is, I'm happy to explain it.
Can you tell them where you got?
There's
the
this
number from?
there's this audit that y'all actually had back for fiscal year 23. That's the latest audit. Your response said, "I'm waiting on the audit to know those balances."
Yes.
Whoever runs a business, if you're waiting on your audit to find out how much money you got in your bank, I think you got a problem, especially if this
That's
many
not the
years
same-
out.
That's not the same thing, Joe, you know that.
And that is what this form is. It's your balance sheet, and it is the same.
I'm not sure how it's not the same.
Go ahead.
I mean, the fund balance statement, there's not a fund balance statement, that doesn't exist. There's a fund balance, breakdown, like if you look at the audit and you look at that page, it shows you what fund balances are, it shows you restricted fund balance, it shows you, or unallocated or available fund balance. All of that is on an audit sheet, that is not in, the city records, it's not a.
How do we make it possible for that to be a thing? Because I think that we would not be in this place if that were more of an available thing. So is there software that can make that available? Is there some way, other than like the monthly reports that we get that's got the RE stuff? I'm sorry, it befuddles me, it does. But I'll be perfectly honest, had I known the gravity of the extent to which we were using fund balance to make ends meet, I don't know that I would have made some of these or agreed to some of the things that I did. So I don't know how do we make that easier to access, especially for council members. Because we, as elected officials, we put our faith in the professionals that we hire to help us understand those things. And just so you know, let me clarify really quick, because I'm getting ready to go into a diatribe, of course. This one, and this one were not here when all of this was happening. The mayor, myself, and Councilman Venter, we were all here. And I'll tell you, we have, a lot of you know how much I have been 10 toes down for the city. Let's make it better. We had a terrible police department. You see these folks sitting right over here? Those are real professionals. Those are the ones that are not landing us on Channel 2 Action News. The people that we've been on this train of protect the house and let's build a great city, but what has that actually cost us? Had I known, and I take full responsibility, I'm not a numbers person, I'm real good at networking and getting attention, that's my that's my talent, but numbers are not. And so the mayor, Councilman Venter, and myself, we knew that we needed to hire a finance director. We knew we didn't have the money for it, and we depended on Emily, who has, unfortunately, we put her in the position where she's carrying all of these responsibilities that should actually be delegated to other people, right? Full responsibility. But how do we, as the only professional that we have, how do we make it to where we can access this information real time? We'll just use it, I use that term, real term.
It's from the audit. During the year, you wouldn't have necessarily a fund balance because you're operating a budget for that current fiscal year. So for example, this current fiscal year, we're using fund balance to fund the city.
Right.
So that the fund balance, I guess, like, bottom line is constantly changing as the budget is going. So it's not possible to just receive a fund balance number. You can look at like your cash account, like you can see what's in the bank account, but that's not the same thing as fund balance.
Right.
So fund balance isn't determined until all of the expenses are made for the year, and then you have what's left over, and that's either restricted or it's not restricted, and it's carried over into the next year into what we're calling fund balance. So the only way for you to know what you have from the prior year is for all of the statements to have gone through the finalization process and then through the audit to verify.
So Joe, it's the people's money, and we use the people's money with last year's budget. We agreed that would be the balancing mechanism, and you can see it. You can see it on page 2, right? Operational transfer in fund balance, We used that last year.
You didn't use $2.6 million, Mayor.
But we also used it in FY '24.
You didn't use $2.6 million if you add those two together. In the last budget I was involved in, we used some money from the enterprise fund and no money from the fund balance. So in 2 years, if y'all used $2.6 million to balance a budget that you presented and voted in as a balanced budget that didn't represent those numbers, I think you still have a tough challenge to explain to me and those that care where that $2.6 million.
Okay, because I don't have the numbers in front of me.
You're
I need
the
to see
mayor,
it.
you're the CEO
But I
of the
would love-
organization.
But I
so
would love to see how you're getting at that $2 million.
I'm looking at the audit, the last actual audit. And it's on that report, it's the balance sheet in that audit.
We can
June
go back
30th,
and talk about
2023.
here and
And
see how
what's
he tied that number down.
what's included in that?
Right, because if I'm not mistaken, part of that is ARPA, but that's not available, it also wasn't.
This is the unassigned number from that budget, from that
Unassigned.
audit. Yeah, so, we can play words, and I know that's why I didn't get my response, and I know that's why I got the ORR response that I did, because I didn't specifically use the exact noun, pronoun, adjective, and any of those other fancy things that get taught in English in my ask. And so I got the response. Surely, to goodness, someone in the city knows what you have in the quote bank. And those funds really are not expense until you use them. They're not the same as your operating budget. Y'all should know that. So I'm
You're
just
right.
expressing that. And I have more to share at the hearing when I have more opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
That, I look forward to that, and former Mayor Elam, I appreciate, you actually said it right there, you said, we should have known, we should have. And there's absolutely zero, excuse for that, zero. It has been a really rough couple of weeks.
I hate to make it hard on you, but, you know, we've all seen our taxes increase.
Well, we've just, we've got a lot of amazing people, and Joe, you were here with us when it was a new day in Baldwin. We didn't know to what extent that was gonna put us in debt and leave us in a position where we have to look at people that we care about. There's some new faces that I don't know. And that in itself makes me sad because I've always been very close to our people. But having to look at them and say, hey, I understand that you're afraid of your job. None of you have come to me to say that specifically, but it has come through some of our others. But let me tell you what's terrifying, even more terrifying than that is to hear from our people at our town hall and people that I've talked to in the public that have lived here and been here their entire lives. I'm not from here. And I've been all over the place, all over the world. I'm very fortunate for that, but I do envy those who are from here, who have lived here their entire lives. Their hearts are here, and I envy that. I don't have that for myself. And so to hear from these people to say, I don't even have a homeowner's insurance because I can't afford it. And to think that if they can't pay their taxes, they will lose their home. Their roots are in the soil here. And so I can't look at them, the pain of having to listen to them and worry about them losing their homes, and then having to look at these fine folks over here and say, you know what, you may not have a job, we may have to do away with the department. I don't wish this position on anyone. God help me. It really is terrible. And there are people in this room right now that have said that I'm dramatic because I've tried to call on the people to come here and give us some direction. And there are people in this very room right now that will tell you that I'm doing this out of spite, and don't you let them listen to you. Don't you let them tell you that. Because I'll be damned. I'll make $300 a month sitting here and sacrificing everything that I've had to sacrifice, and doing all the fights that I've had to fight for this city. Don't let them tell you that I'm doing this out of spite, because damn, that's not a good place to be. But it's a lot better than learning that someone's lost their home that they've had their entire lives. And Mr. Elam, thank you very much for asking those hard questions, because you know what? You've been asking those questions for years, haven't you? And I'm sorry. You know why. I'm done.
Other comments from council? Next item on the agenda is FY 2026 appointments, also, okay, we have a list of appointments in our packet. This is the time of year where we reappoint non-contracted folks who help us do the work of the city. For city attorney, we ask for a reappointment of the Samuels firm. For the city auditor, Morris and Waters. For our city clerk, Erin Gathercole. For the city engineer, Fletcher Holiday with Engineering Management, Inc. For our judge, Robert Sneed. Our city solicitor, Teresa DeFonzio from the Samuels firm. And we will also need to appoint a mayor pro tem. Councilwoman Venter has held that position for the past year and a half, or two, yeah, been a year and a half. Conversation from council. What happened with, the state and the judge? Did they go for a 2-year?
Yeah, but it's contingent on charter.
Okay. So we're not binding, no, we're not binding future councils, okay. is this their third year? Moores and Waters?
This will be
sec-
like they're working for.
The Samuel's Farm, okay. Moores and Waters.
This will be
second,
their working third.
Working third, all right. We did an RFP for the city engineer 2 years ago, okay. Judge Sneed seems to be everybody's judge, so. And Teresa comes with the Samuel's Farm. Are there nominations for a mayor pro tem? Alice, do you want to remain mayor pro tem?
If that is what the council, like, yes, it has been an honor. I feel like I've done the best job that you all think, so.
Is there anybody else who would like to be mayor pro tem?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
No, I was just thinking about Eric and Terry. They both nodded now.
No desire to do it, but if you would like for me to, I will.
The concern is that we are up for reelection in
Right.
the middle of this year, so
Decision
if
can be made at that time, but.
a decision can be
Yeah.
made at that time, exactly. Are you comfortable with that? So I
I
would.
think it's important to have somebody that's been around for a while
Mhm.
in that position.
Agreed.
And I haven't been around long enough.
So I need a motion to reappoint.
Not-
No, no,
We'll-
that's not,
we'll adopt.
we'll do
Yeah,
it
we can do a nomination,
on Monday.
vote, and then it'll be out.
Okay, so you would accept it?
Yeah,
on Monday?
okay.
Okay, that's great, thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is the new council meeting schedule. You heard Ms. Woodmaster talk about the fact that one of the cost-saving measures is to eliminate one of our meetings. That was something that came out of the town hall, asking each of the departments to see if they could cut back somehow. So it's the county that does the work session and then the meeting right after.
There's a couple cities that do it.
Denver does it too. So we were looking to do that. So we would have to discuss, if we wanted to go that route, to have the work session early, maybe 6 o'clock instead of 6:30, and then be able to move into the regular meeting immediately following. That would be our 2 meetings. We would meet once a month rather than 3 different weeks over the course of the month. It would save us a little bit of money. How are we feeling about that?
Yeah, and
At 6 o'clock on Mondays? Well, Mondays or Tuesdays, I mean, Erin, do we run into Monday holiday?
Yes,
We do.
typically we do.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't
There
want-
don't think there are any holidays on Tuesdays, unless it's like Christmas or something, yeah, something like.
It's a rarity, but it will be taken into account when we approve the calendar for the entire year come December.
Right, yeah, I think so. It will be a little bit longer turnaround time for some things that come forward, but the important thing is that, and it was brought up by some citizens, they're like, why y'all gotta meet 3 times a month? Hell, heck, I don't know, we can't even go on vacations.
Right.
Honestly,
Exactly.
we really can, yeah, it's been 8 years. We got like a little week here, something in there, yeah.
So, Ms. Gathico, the schedule that was presented to us in our packet, are these Monday nights or Tuesday nights?
Those are Tuesday nights. So those are utilizing the work session dates that were already approved by council, and just moving what would have been the next Monday to that same
To
date.
that day.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we okay with Tuesdays?
Council meeting first and then the work
No,
session?
no, work session
Work
first,
session,
and
then council
then
meeting.
immediately following with council.
But it's only once a month, so maybe it's,
No, I'm just concerned about for staff and
oh,
citizenry and media. They
Yeah.
just flip them around, have a council meeting first and then a work.
you have to have the work session for the discussion and then the vote after the subsequent
So you
voting.
can't stagger them?
The work session's obviously for discussion of what you're getting ready to vote on, so you have to have the work session first. And then, that gets closed out, and you enter into an actual meeting, same day, and then that's when the
Just
voting
back to
takes
back.
place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes it difficult for developers, for example, who need 2 readings for something, so.
I do like the fact that it, as Ms. Woodmaster said that, it would be easier on staff to be able to gather information, because I know a lot of times things are brought to us pretty quickly. And particularly, you know, Eric and Carrie both are like, hey, what are we talking about here?
Give us
So,
more time to think about it.
digest things, right. Yeah.
Some of these are first Tuesday of the month, and some are second Tuesday, for planning.
It's the first,
2026.
it's the first Tuesday of the full week of the month. Yeah.
It's later. Is it, okay.
So are we okay bringing this forward for Tuesday? So 6 o'clock instead of 6:30, we'll stick with the Tuesdays. Okay.
And that'll be done by ordinance, so it'll be read for the first time Monday night, and then at the end of the month meeting, it'll be read the second time.
Okay, and then this will be in effect in July, the new budget, okay.
How much was that savings? What was it, $10,000?
A little under.
A little under 10 a year, yeah.
It helps.
I mean,
Every little bit helps.
Every drop, lots of drops. Well, couple cups.
Yeah, like,
Couple cups, you know.
all right, that concludes our new business. Move into announcements. The proposed FY 2026 budget is available to the public online at www.cityofbaldwin.org/documents and for pickup at City Hall. The public hearing for FY 2026 budget will be held at the June 9th council meeting. Next announcement, the Banks County Library on the Go will be set up at the Tap Yard at 110 Airport Road from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. every Friday through the end of July. We encourage all residents to check out our return books. Additionally, those visiting the local library with children can receive food bags courtesy of the Food Bank of Northeast Georgia. The first meeting for the 2025 City of Baldwin Comprehensive Plan will be on June 11th at 5:30 at Baldwin City Hall. All Baldwin residents, business owners, and stakeholders are invited to provide feedback for the city's next 5-year plan and join the committee if interested. Please contact City Clerk at cityofbaldwin.org for more information or to RSVP. The third annual Baldwin Water War is on June 14th from 2:30 to 4:30 at Mitchell Gailey Park. Bring your water guns and a towel to beat the heat and kick off summer vacation. And then finally, join us for Theron's Theater, previously Movies in the Market, at the Tap Yard on June 27th at 8:30 p.m. for a free screening of Wonka. Bring a chair or blanket and enjoy the night under the stars with your friends and family. Concessions are available with all proceeds going to Shopper Hero. Thank you to Councilwoman Venter for providing the pizza at the last Movies in the Market. That was a fun night. We had a good time. Any announcements from council? Any announcements from staff? And I have a motion to adjourn. I have a motion from Councilman Venter. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have multiple seconds. Councilwoman Venter, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?